Hello everybody, I'm joined by my father again for another movie review. Say hi, Dad.
Hi everybody.
Today we're talking about Them from 1954. What did you think of Them?
I think it's a very effective movie. It's very well directed. The performances are good, and at the time, there was a lot of fear about what effects that the atomic bomb, the nuclear bomb, had on different forms of wildlife and on people, etc. So it brought that part of it into it too.
Right, another Cold War film, another film on like anxiety at the time, and
right, another one that dealt with had the underlying theme of the Cold War.
Right. Also, like you have this little girl who was she was found in the middle of nowhere when we already assume that her parents were killed by the ants, and she has that severe shell shock and traumatized of what she just witnessed of how her parents were killed by the ants, and she doesn't say a word until what's his name's character, Edmund Gwynn's character, Dr. Harold Medford, gave her some kind of, what was that stuff that he gave her?
Formic acid.
To get her attention.
To smell it.
Yeah.
The smell of formic acid, which is something that the ants produce.
Right.
So that jarred her memory.
Right. Oh, it did. It did. Them.
Yeah, and that whole sequence is really very effective because it brings humanity and something that people can identify with. A child that lost her parents,
right,
and she's so grief-stricken that she can't even speak.
No,
and the whole build-up to that, and the time when she finally says something, she's wide-eyed in shock and says them, and you still don't know what them represents or what the killers are.
Right.
And the way it builds up to it, I think, is really effective because it keeps you guessing. I mean, you do know.
Well, obviously we know.
You do know, but I mean, in the sense that you don't see any of the ants until later on. I mean, it's within, I guess, 15 or 20 minutes of the movie, but still.
Something like that.
Yeah. It just the way it builds up suspense, I think, was very, very well done.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think the effects for the time period of how especially I was nominated for an Oscar, but it lost to Disney's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that the effects weren't the greatest, even back when I first saw it as a kid.
Right.
Because I think it would have been much better if they were stop motion, but I'm sure that would have been very expensive.
That would have been very expensive and very big time consuming for stop motion, but
I think that the actors help you get into it, and since they are very believable in their reactions, and they help provide some of the some of the reality that's kind of taken away by the actual practical effects of what the ants look like.
Right. And also we have Edmund Gwynn, Kris Kringle as our. I remember when I first saw this, I'm like, wait, where's Edmund Gwynn, Kris Kringle? But I didn't recognize him without the long beard, and it took me a few minutes, oh, there he is, especially when I heard his voice. I'm like, there he is, there's Santa Claus.
Right.
He plays a smart, intelligent scientist, and he's old, experienced, wise, and he's also, amazed and fascinated with, never witnessing something like this in his lifetime of, seeing these big giant monster ants. Yeah, and he's also nice and humble, and he has a daughter who has also, I guess, her has her PhD in the same line of work as
she works with her father. Right?
Yeah, but she's not the typical damsel in distress because what's his name? I think was it James or was it James Arness's character Robert Graham, who was always protective. Really, this is no place for a woman to be, and. Right. In some ways, it kind of reminded me a little bit of similar of King Kong a little bit with Fay Wray and what's his name?
Bruce Cabot.
Bruce Cabot a little bit.
Yeah.
The only difference is he's not sexist. He's just trying to make sure that she's safe and nothing like that'll ever happen to her. And
right.
And of course, her character, like any character, because her father's older, she worries about him because of not knowing if how far and deep can he go into what they're trying to do, and is this good for his health conditions or not.
Yeah, you know, she's a strong female
She
character.
is.
She's very well educated. She speaks very well.
Yeah.
And
she's fearless.
She's fearless. She goes in after the ants.
Yes.
On a discovery mission, and
yeah.
You know, her father respects her too because he allows her to give presentations.
Right.
He leaves it to her and refers to her as doctor.
Right. Well, probably for professional reasons.
Yeah. But still, it's refreshing to see such a female character back in the 1950s.
Right. Also, what'd you think of like James Whitmore and James Arness's characters?
Yeah, I think they're both very good actors. James Whitmore has been around for many years. In the 50s, he had a lot of roles.
Right.
He's probably most commonly or most recently known as the ex-convict in Shawshank Redemption.
Yes. Very young here, and you wouldn't even recognize him.
Mm-hmm. And you know, probably a lot of you already know this, but James Arness played the original Thing.
Yes, which I never would have guessed that was, you know, the same actor playing the Thing from because I don't really know much about James Arness as an actor, like what else he did outside of like this and the thing from the original Thing from Another World.
He was very famous on television. He played Marshall Dillon. And I can't remember the name of the television show, but...
Here's a little fact right here. Walt Disney screened the movie because he was interested in casting James Arness as Davy Crockett. He was so impressed by Fess Parker's performance as the crazy Texan pilot that he chose him for the part instead of James Arness.
With James Whitmore's character, I liked how like the way like he shows compassion to the little girl after what she's been through, and all of that. Also, he's very good with kids, especially when he tries to save the kids underground when the ants are attacking. And also, this is something I actually want to point out. Actually, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, this is a little bit similar to Aliens, but I wouldn't say that Aliens was a reboot to them. Just the same premise, but different.
Yeah, I know. That was a good point that you made.
Yeah, but I'm probably the first person to point that out, though. But that's something I've noticed a lot of YouTubers. But still, just something worth pointing out about a little bit of Aliens inspiration. But instead of big giant ants, they're not like the Xenomorphs where they... what's the word?
Grasp
the face and impregnate you with an alien inside you, and or even especially when they go, like you said, the underground, find the other eggs, and it was also, like I said, Onslow Stevens' character, who you all might recognize from Universal's House of Dracula, which was one of the last of the Universal Dracula movie, and Frankenstein the Wolfman before they went to comedy of Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. I didn't recognize him at first because, again, he's not like wearing the makeup that he wore as Dr. Edelman in House of...
Right, I didn't recognize him at all.
Right. And also, like we said before about like the fear, like they were uncertain, like should we like announce this to Washington and the whole world? Will the whole world go into panic if, makes it a pandemic of not knowing how, like, if this could like spread out like all over the world, like if other ants could be like can mutate and grow. Because basically what causes it was the atomic bombing that happened in 1945, and I guess years later the radiation caught on, and it's what caused the ants to grow bigger.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think of the film score to this movie?
I thought it was very good. It definitely added to the mood.
Right.
I don't know who did the film score.
His name is Bronslow Cape. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. If that's the composer's name who did the score.
Okay.
Especially as that like
right.
Which that's something like that'll definitely like stick in your head when you first hear it. Yeah. And also, like I said, inspirations. I read that Rodin was inspired from this, the Toho movie, and the movie Matinee with John Goodman paid tribute to this movie, especially like if you love 50s sci-fi, when you watch Matinee, you'll get all of like the Easter eggs and tribute references to 50s sci-fi films that Joe Dante grew up watching when he was a kid at that time.
Right.
Yeah. Also, Richard Deacon has a cameo in this movie, and Harry Wilson, who I recognize. Well, Richard Deacon from Leave It to Beaver, and Harry Wilson, who was in Pocketful of Miracles.
Yeah, Yeah, and Richard Deacon was also, I guess he's probably most famous for the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yes, that's what he's. And I guess like also like a lifelong character actor, just made a lot of appearances in movies and shows, and like I said, Harry Wilson from Pocketful of Miracles. Yeah, it's funny how like when you point out like all the like you didn't notice that this actor or that small like minor actor was in this part. And also, believe it or not, Leonard Nimoy's in this movie.
I was gonna say, is that Leonard Nimoy?
Yes. This was this was Leonard Nimoy's first film before, way before Star Trek, and
I looked at that and I said, that really looks like Leonard Nimoy. I didn't say anything though.
No, you correct. You were.
Okay.
Very young and unknown Leonard Nimoy the time before, way before Star.
He looks like he was about 17 years old.
Got to start somewhere, and he was also on some Twilight Zone episodes before he was famous too, and. Let's see. I also want to point. Did you remember the movie Ant-Man and Wasp with Paul Rudd? Here's actually a little funny story. I remember the first time I saw this. I watched this movie because I was working on film presentations for my horror and Sci-Fi club at the time. You and I went to the movies that day, and it's funny how like little coincidence that at the end of the movie, after when Ant-Man saved the world, stopped the bad guy, and him and his daughter are having like a little date, family night with introducing his girlfriend to his daughter, and they're watching them as a movie night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, isn't that like so like coincidence how that I watched them and then we went to the movies later? That's
funny.
It is kind of funny and like funny coincidence. And as I'm like watching the film, I'm like, oh my god, they're watching them. But I'm saying to myself, how many modern generation even know about this movie today?
Yeah. It is a classic 1950s science fiction movie.
Absolutely, definitely one of the best ones. And also like set the state. Well, like the year before when this movie came out, the year before, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms came out, but that was like a different established. That was like giant monsters, like lizards, dinosaurs, snakes, or whatever. This was more about big giant bug movies.
Yeah, I mean, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was about one giant.
Right, where this is like multiple giants.
Yeah, actually, I believe that was a result of the monster coming out of the ice because there was an explosion, I think, or something like that.
Something like that. We haven't seen the movie since last year since we did the video. So sorry if we're not 100% accurate, but I can always look into that. And
I believe that was the first of the giant monster movies.
Yeah. Well, basically, like I said, I look at
the 50s. I mean,
I look at it two separate ways. Beast of 20,000 Fat, big giant monster film. This was more about big giant bug movies for the time. Especially after that, you had Tarantula, Earth vs. the Spider, the Black Scorpion, and the Deadly Man. There's probably more, but I can go all day with.
Right. Yeah, the Deadly Man.
But you get the point. The point is though that this is what established giant bug movies for the 50s of sci-fi for the time. And have you seen any of these movies?
Yeah, I saw Black Scorpion.
Right.
Which was the special effects were done by Edmund O'Brien.
Right.
The person who did King Kong.
Right.
But it was not really done in a very.
I've never seen it, so I can't make a comment.
It wasn't done with the same quality as King Kong. I think he was having a very tough time, I believe, with in his family.
Right.
I'm not sure. I think his wife may have passed away or something.
So basically, it was like a tragedy in the family. Is what kind of caused him to not like.
Right.
Be like.
I mean, some sequences are really, really excellent.
Right.
And others, they just kind of had like this. Looks like almost like a cartoon-like scorpion walking across the screen.
I'll have to check it out for curiosity because some people recommended it to me. Black Scorpion.
No, it's a good film, especially because O'Brien was involved in it. So there are some parts of it which are really excellent, and it's definitely worth seeing.
I also
saw the mantis, the giant
deadly mantis,
and Tarantula.
I know that Clint Eastwood was in Tarantula. That was like one of his first films at the time. Yeah, that's all I know about it. I've never seen Tarantula.
But it's very well done. Both those movies are very well done because basically, what they're doing is superimposing, and blowing up the image of those insects,
Right.
and juxtaposing them with people and buildings and stuff. It's pretty effective.
Right. Also, like I love the ending of this movie. How it's like similar to The Thing from Another World. Keep watching the skies, and
Yeah.
he says like the about. What did he say again? I'm drawing a blank of what he said about like the mystery of like the unknown or something like that, or about.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact.
All right. Well,
it was something
again,
but it leaves it open ended.
Right. About,
So the menace is not gone completely.
right. That basically that someday that these ants could maybe return someday down.
Right.
Which I thought was very clever and interesting. Even though I'm glad they didn't make a sequel, because not like back then compared to now. Now they have to make a sequel to everything and
Yeah.
franchise it to death and saturate and butcher it to death for pushing their luck.
Yeah.
If they did that, they would have sent them to space.
Right.
Yeah, but all in all, great sci-fi film, great like giant monster, giant bug movie, and great effects, and also great characters that have great dialogue. You're very drawn to these characters from
Right.
the beginning until the end of it, until they save the day. Anything else you want to touch upon with it, or?
No, I think that's good. I think, I just would urge everybody to see it.
Absolutely.
It's a good movie.
Yes. All right. See y'all next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.